There's guys that are just like, it is so effortless for them.
But what all of us, it's what we talked about in the beginning. A lot of people are like, well, Josh, it's an overnight success, right, man? Like, it's so easy for you. It's like those guys have decades.
Mm-hmm.
They've been working at this thing for thousands and tens of thousands of hours.
For sure.
Right? And that
I mean, I'm at 10,000 hours in
right?
stand-up, so imagine what they are.
25,000, 30,000, 40,000. If you do anything, what I found in life, you do anything that long, man, you got a shot at being great.
Absolutely.
So stick with it, right? That's the message of entrepreneurship, of comedy, of like, think about how you're probably a better dad now for the 12 and 7-year-old than in the beginning.
Right.
Right?
Right. And you alluded to it earlier, and it's the total truth with them. It's that I had a bar set so high for me that I feel like I have to do whatever I can to leave that kind of an impact and hope that they will feel that same way too, right? That's if that's what I can pass on is like a work ethic and be the kind of person that people remember fondly. Like, that's why you should do it, you know, like, not to bring like religion and everything else. Like, things should not be done out of fear. You should not do something good because you're worried something bad will happen to you if you don't. You should do it because it's the right thing to do, right?
Simple.
Whatever it is you're doing, do it knowing that you can go to sleep that night, that if it didn't work out, say, I thought I was doing the right thing, whether that's for me professionally, for me personally, decisions that I make as a father or as a husband, as long as I can sleep at night knowing that I did what I thought was the right thing to do, that was why I left P&G in the first place, right? I never wanted to be at a point in my life where I look back and said, what if? Because if I had done that, while I might have had a successful career in corporate America or lived in a nice house or whatever it is, I would still have that in me somewhere of like, man, what if I'd just given it a shot?
Man, it's your dude at Willie's back in the day.
It is. It's totally.
And even though he impacted you, you don't think that came from he had regret on what he didn't continue?
I think there was for sure some regret, you know, but he was also practical. And that was the other thing, is that I made those decisions when they were only affecting me. Like, I left P&G knowing that if it didn't work out, I'd probably still have time to get back into corporate America. And that I wasn't, you know, hanging out a wife and children with no income because I wanted to go chase a dream. Like, I was very purposeful about when I did end up getting married and when we did have kids, is that I felt like I was at a point where I could support them because it wasn't just decisions that were affecting me anymore. We've done that as a t-shirt company, you know, back when it was Darren and I, until we opened our first store, it was Darren and I for the first 8 years. And it was like, yeah, let's put out this super edgy shirt because if we piss off a lot of people, who cares? It's, you know, I still got my stand-up money and you still got your board game money and you're still painting. Now, like, I have 30 employees that are going to be affected by the decisions we make. So maybe let's not put out that shirt that's going to piss off this person. Or, you know, if I'm getting interviewed by the news, like, hey, let's talk about your store getting vandalized during the George Floyd riots. Like, I'm speaking with other people in mind. You know, I'm really careful about how I convey my personal opinions on stuff because it can impact other people. And you know, like, that's just something that's always top of mind for me. Even being here today, it's like I'm representing more than just me now.
It's more important than to express how you feel is to connect with how others feel.
Yes.
Way more important.
Yes.
Also, like, I was thinking about this, like, what's the purpose of life? And I'm like, man, be that person, that guy or girl that gets tapped on the shoulder at the Star Wars conference.
Well, I don't know about farting on other celebrities to, you know,
whatever
hopefully have that achieved. But yes, do something great. I always joked about on stage, like, do what makes a better story. If you're presented with, that's how that story came to be. Is that I was like, I'll either have no story because I'll tell people, yeah, I met her and she wasn't very nice, or, you know, we have this and then that particular story grew to so much more than just having a funny anecdote. You know, it got to the point where I got picked up by a limo driver in Texas that the club had hired to take me to the comedy club, and he was like, I couldn't wait for you to be here because I love that joke, and I knew that I was picking up Jessica Simpson from the airport one day, and so I had your CD playing.
And you didn't talk about how you're insulted. You don't have to. But she pretty much insulted you on the point.
Yeah, she wasn't nice. She wasn't very nice.
Isn't it crazy that in that moment that you didn't feel good. You're insulted by this celebrity person that has a bigger celebrity than you. And
Right.
you're like, this is not cool. This doesn't feel good. And then all of this goodness, the tap on the shoulder, comes from that moment.
Yes. And what's funny is I would save it for like radio stations and stuff like that. And then I was in Shreveport, Louisiana at the club, and I was talking to this group of people after the show, and I was like, what are you guys doing? They're like, we're here working on Dukes of Hazzard. They were on the film crew. And I was like, oh, I got a story for you about Jessica Simpson because she's in the movie. And so they're like, why don't you talk about that on stage? I was like, well, honestly, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Like, I'm sure there's moments if somebody came up to me that I would not have been my best person. And so maybe she was having a bad day. It's just a fun little story that I can share with people. And they go, oh no, she treats people like that every day. Everyone she meets, she treats that way. So that's when I decided to start telling it on stage. And so I had this, special come out, and at the time there was an online magazine that was all about stand-up comedy that was really popular called Punchline, and they did this article about the 10 best stories told by comedians. And it was like Lewis Black and Ron White and Dane Cook, and they put my Jessica Simpson story in there. So it got a lot of, notoriety for that or whatever. And so fast forward like a couple years later, my manager goes, what's wrong with he calls me. He's like, your website's down. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, your website's down. I pull it up, and sure enough, it's crashed. And I've called the IT guy, and I was like, hey, do you know what's going on? And he's like, oh yeah, it looks like too much traffic. And I was like, when would I ever have too much traffic that it would crash my website? So I started digging around. Come to find out, TMZ on their TV show did a story about Jessica Simpson where she was in a meeting at Macy's, and like they were talking about her brand and all the people involved with it, and she's like kind of off to the side while they're all meeting, and she farts in this meeting. And everybody knows it was her because she's off to the side by herself. And so somehow it becomes a story on TMZ, right? Well, I guess enough people were looking for it that they then go to the internet and they go, Jessica Simpson farted, and they do a Google search where I am the number one search for Jessica Simpson farting by a couple years already. And so people start clicking my website thinking they're going to find out that story, and then they find out my story. And then it gets put on Funny or Die and blows up there. And it's just like one night on a plane, somebody
insulted.
wasn't nice to me.
And this is what happens.
It's made me so much money.
So when they come and see you, I just saw on your social media that like August 23rd, you're in Louisville.
August 10th. But
10th,
yes,
so I apologize.
Yeah, Thursday, August 10th, I'll be in Louisville at the Comedy Club one night.
So what happens when somebody shows up? What happens? What do we hear? What do we see?
Well, right now, I'm in a weird spot between specials. So I had filmed one for Dry Bar that had a little bit of new stuff. It's gone way better than I planned. I mean, it's at like 50 million views, all the different clips, which is more than anything I've ever done.
That's nuts.
And this was for a brand that no one had ever heard of at the time, Dry Bar. They just wanted to make a library of clean stand-up comedy. So that has that coincided with the T-shirt company firing on a lot of its cylinders, and then my kids being at an age where they're a little more self-sustainable, and their big moments are not as frequent, that I can start to devote a little bit more time to writing again. So all those things combined have got me in a writing phase where I'm like starting to really crank out some ideas that I've really just sat on for several years. So in Louisville specifically, they'll probably see a mix of all the stuff that no one's heard really yet because it's brand new, and then some kind of highlights from like the Dry Bars, just some older material. But I'll be up there an hour, and they'll probably hear 80% new stuff, 20% old stuff, and then I'm trying to get that 80% to 100% so that I can record the next special. So that it's looking at hopefully later this year or early next year, I'll be recording the next big thing that I'll release, which is very exciting for me.